Hey everyone, welcome back to Netcode-Hub channel. I am Frederick, as you know, and I'm happy to have you here today. Do you actually know how to add policy authorization to Blazor application dynamically? This means during runtime, do you know how to add policy authorization to it? In this video, I'm going to show you how to do that. It is not all the time that you have to configure your policy authorization in the program.cs file. This time around, during the runtime, you can add authorization to it, and I'm going to show you today. Before we jump right into this, make sure you subscribe to this channel and also click on this like and on the bell icon to receive updates as soon as I upload new video. If you want to grab this source code, it will be available as well, so check the video description. Before you apply authorization, you must first have an authentication. And with this, I'm not going to start with authentication because this video is talking about, or is main focusing on, adding policy dynamically. So if you want to know how to add authentication, that is a quick authentication, check the video description. I have several links of videos in there. You can watch any of them. I do offer coaching or mentoring sessions to people who are interested. So if you want, then check the video description. I have an email that you can write to me through it. Alright, so let's see this what we have. With this, we built it already, you and I. Check the video description. I'll put the link of this video in there so you can check it. If you don't know how to implement cookie authentication, then check that video and I'll continue with this. We have our just login and our register, which creates user account using the user manager or the identity manager that we use in here. So this is a very simple thing, okay? Here we are not adding any role-based or policy-based, nothing here. When you check the settings in here from the program.cs, you can see here we just add this authentication state provider, and we have authentication scheme specified in here, and our cookie also service added, and that is all. We have a default policy in here, okay? So with this, we are going to remove the default policy because now we're going to add this dynamically during runtime. So we can comment this. Okay, so when I do this, it's commented, and now what I need to do here is to add the authorization. So build out the services dot add authorization, and that is it. So here we have it added, and we've commented the default policy that we have. So now I'm going to run this application for you to see that this app does not have any policy-based authorization. It's only the authentication by cookie. Okay, so let me save this. Let's run this app. So you can see that here we have our application run, and we have just register and our login. So if I log in as an admin, let's see, here I have my email and password being authenticated, but with this, there is no policy, or there is no role-based or policy authorization system for this. Just only the login. Okay, so let's log in and see. Yeah, so you can see that we are logged in, and if I inspect my cookies, I have it set in here. From the cookie session, I have the cookie stored in here. That's fine. Before we start to add this policy authorization, maybe you might be asking, why do we need to add this authorization dynamically during runtime? Okay, that's a good question. Now let's say if you have an application with role-based, you can change user's role from manager to user, from user to admin, admin to pro, and etc. You can do all these stuff in here. Let's say if it is policy authorization, and you want to now change the policy itself, not the claims, the policy itself. Now when changing roles, admin can do it without the help of developer, isn't it? What of when changing policy? Admin cannot have access unless the developer. So that is the reason why you need to dynamically add claims. Is it claims or policy? Your policy. You see, so you can create a user and assign a policy to that user. This policy will be created dynamically, and as soon as the user logs in, that policy also gets fetched from the database and now get applied. So you can store all your policies in database with their claims, and anytime a user logs in, based on the claims or based on the policy that user is falls under, you retrieve them and you apply them to your application. Dynamic app. Fantastic. Yeah, so that's what you're going to do. So that's the importance of using dynamic policy authorization. Okay, so now that you understand this, I believe the next question is, how do I implement this? That's right. That is the next thing that we're going to do. So let's close this. We're going to create a service here to help us create this. Okay, so in here I can just create a folder to this, and maybe I can name it as policy authorization. Well, you can give it any name of your choice. That's fine. Let me create an interface. And I'm going to say my interface, I'm going to call iAuth. Let me say iPolicyAuth. Now with this, we want to have two methods. Okay, the first one is to okay, let's have a method now. Later on we talk about the second one. So here, this is what we're going to do. We want to have void, and that is create policy. So this is a method that we are creating. Now with this create policy, maybe we can specify the role that you want, and maybe the policy name. What are the things that you need? What are the claims that you need? So in here, we're going to add a row, and we're going to add the policy name. That is all. Okay. So here we have string row name, and we have string policy name. You can decide to specify which parameters you need based on your criteria. This is another use case, so I'm using this. Okay. Oh, this is an interface, and see what I've done. Okay, so I'm going to clear this one. All right, so we have this, and we can also check. Let's also have another method, and with this method, we are going to return authorization policy. Authorization policy will return the authorization itself, and here we can get policy by name. So get policy by name, and as soon as you hear name, what comes to mind? It means we must pass in parameter of policy name. Perfect. These are the two parameter interfaces that we need, not parameters. Interfaces, that's fine. Okay, now that we are done here, we can save this, close this, and once you have an interface, it tells you that we need what? Perfect, implementation. So quickly, policy auth will be the name for that. In your policy authorization folder, you're going to create a class in here, and I'm going to be policy auth. Give it a name of your choice. Okay, so mine is policy auth. Now this has to inherit from the boss if you've worked with this before. So iPolicy auth. We need to implement these interfaces, so we have them set in here. Okay, let's create constructor for this UR constructor, and we're going to pass in iOptions of authorization options. So iOptions, okay, of authorization options. That is this guy. Let's give it a name authorization option. Okay, and this tells you that we need to, let's see, so here, create and assign this field. So we have this in here, and I'm reassigning this, so we can say that this dot value. And I think normally we can use this underscore in here. Okay, so we can remove this, make it underscore. And instead of using this, we don't want an option here, we want so authorization option is equal to this dot value. So we have this set already, and that is all. The next method here is to create. Okay, but first of all, let's work on the get first, because get is simple. So we say this is a var policy is equal to, then we can have this authorization option dot get policy. You see that? Passing the policy name, then we can return the policy. Okay, so we are returning this policy. But since it's a task, we have to use task from results, then pass in this policy, and now we are good to go. Perfect. Okay, let's go to the create. That is where the magic comes in. First of all, we need to create an instance of authorization policy builder, because you're going to build this, so we need to have the head set first. So let's see, I'm going to say this is policy again, and I'm going to name it as new authorization builder. Search for builder. Do you have it? Authorization builder. That's mine. Aside from that, we want to have access to, with this policy, what we need here first is dot required user authenticated. User must be authenticated first. Second one, dot required row. So here, let's pass in the row that we have, and that is the row name. You see this? Then we have dot build. Very simple. After building this, we have to pass this authorization builder into the option that we created. So we're going to say that authorization option dot add policy, and now with this we specify the policy name and the policy itself. So nice and simple. Okay, so now that we are done, let's go in and register the service of this. So go to program, and anywhere, okay, you can put it. So I'm going to say builder.services. I didn't say bool, I said builder.services. Now dot add singleton. And with this, I need to specify authorization policy builder. And this should come from the namespace of this. And we need the builder. Is that just what we need? I nearly forgot that we created just auth. I know you got it, right? So policy auth. This one. Okay. Policy auth. And now this is policy auth. This is what we need to do. This is the right thing. So do this. Okay. Alright, so we have this set. So you can see that we don't have any default policy set. We have the interface and its implementation that we created being linked up in here. And that is all. We have authorization also service registered. And that is good. Okay, let's save this. Now let's go to the UI. Let's say in the home page, I'm going to have a button in here. So first of all, maybe we can specify string, and I'm going to say this is policy name. Then I'm going to have another string, and I'm going to say this is row. Now I'm going to have a method, and this is void add policy. Now in here, I'm going to inject the IAuth. All the time is iPolicyAuth, isn't it? iPolicyAuth, which coming from this space, and I will say this is policyAuth. Let's have our sets in here. Now, if I click on this, if I click on add policy, I'm going to say policyAuth dot then create policy. Specify the name. So here, what we need is a row name. So row and policy name. So that is a policy name in here. So anytime that I click on this button, I want to create this policy. Now let's have a button down here. Add policy. Maybe you can have an input text box too. And at bind, you want to say first one is going to be the policy name. That is this. We can have a duplicate of this, and this is going to be row. So we can have policy name row, then the button. Very simple one. You see this? Now, when we are done, when we finish creating this, we want to add a method so we can get this policy. So I'm going to say this is class of this, and btn primary, and here I'm going to say mb5. I'm going to leave a space. Let me make a copy of this, and now instead of add, that is get policy. And now this policy, you need to specify the same name that you pass on here. So get policy. And now this is going to say policyAuth dot get policy by name. Specify the policy name. Now this is going to return authorization policy. So we can just store this here if you want to check. Okay, and here we can also authenticate the user and see if the user matches this one. So here, in order to authenticate it, let's see. What we need to do here is we have this authorization service injected. That's great. Now here we are authenticating this. So instead of, we want to move this. So let's have claim principal for this user. So you have then we say this is user. So instead of this, we can say user is equal to this. Then we want to cut this one. You want to have a button down here. So async task. Authenticate user. Then in here, we need to specify, we have the current user logged in. We pass in this policy, and now that is a policy name, the same policy. You're not doing anything, so you want to check. Let's put a breakpoint here. We put a breakpoint here. That is get, and now this is create. So with this create, we put breakpoint here. Even when you create this, you're not going to see. But when you go to the service that you created, policy auth, when it creates, put a breakpoint down here. So this will get hit. That's fine. Let's run the app and check it out. Oh, that's right. So we have our form created, and we're going to fill. So policy name that you want to add, this is admin policy. Now this admin policy, we require the row of admin. Click on add this. Breakpoint is hit. It has been added. So if I click on the policy, see what happens. Now if I open this up, how many requirements that we have? 2. It tells you that the policy has been added. Now user requires an authenticated user. So this first requires an authenticated user. Second, you need a row of admin. So this is working. Click on continue. So this is set. Okay. Now if I click on get policy, click on this policy ID and have a look. Result is in here, and the requirements are 2. The same requirement requires an authenticated user and requires the row must be of what? Admin. Okay. Now the current user that we have, let's check if the user qualified. Currently the user is authenticated, but there is no row assigned to this user as a claim. So let's see if the user qualifies. Now in here, we must have a button for that. And here I'm going to say authenticate user. Okay, so authenticate user. We have it in here. Let's save this. And now we're going to put breakpoint to this as well. Let's reload this. Okay, so we're going to do everything again. Policy name. It is admin policy. Requires a row of administrator. Add policy. It has been added. Let's see. Wait, 2 requirements. Require authenticated user. Require the row of admin. That's fine. Now get policy. We do same. Get policy from this home. Okay, it did not hit because we did not put a breakpoint. Let's do this again. Get policy. Now it is the same policy that we have retrieved from the result. The same requirement, 2 requirements. Now let's authenticate the user and see. Continue. Currently the user is authenticated because he is logged in. Authenticate user. Have a look. And you can see succeeded was false. Why? Go to failure. And it has 1. You can see this policy that we created has 2 claims. One is the user must be authenticated, and 2 is the user must be in an admin role. Now have a look. Now you can see this is a role, and here it's saying that the user must be in an admin role. So 1 has succeeded, that is authenticated user, it has passed, but the second one did not pass. And in authorization, all the requirements must get satisfied before it can give you the green light. So yet still, although 1 is satisfied, 1 is off, so red and green, and you can see we have it as what? False. So you're not authenticated. You cannot have access to any component that we assigned this authorized or admin policy in here. And that is it. Few steps, we are able to implement our dynamic policy. So you can now add policy to this. Now, as soon as the person is online, as soon as the person is in here, this policy gets applied to all the components that you want to check and now display or hide based on the policy or the claims that you require. This, when the user closes the browser and open it again, you have to then apply this policy. So the best way is to put your policy name, your required claims in a database table. Let me be precise in here. Anytime the user logs in, you go into the database and now check what are the policies related to this specific user. You get them and now you pass them in here and you can keep going. Yeah, so that's a way to dynamically add policy in Blazor application. This cuts across all the render modes, talking about WebAssembly, interactive server, and also the auto. That's fine. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'm going to catch up again with an interesting and informative content as well. Till then, take care.